Welcome to the Heritage Hunters podcast with Dawn Piercy and the Heritage Huntress, where we are climbing trees and turning leaves. Grab your saucers. We've got tea and it's about to be spilled. Welcome back to the Heritage Hunters podcast. We're picking up where we left off. Don't lose your heads and grab a saucer. We've got tea. I want to pass it on to future generations, and I want the information to be right. I'm just going to be honest. All right. So, a list of, let's see, I wrote it. I literally wrote it all down. Okay. So the summary of royals executed. We've got the Marian persecutions as well. Okay, so I'm going to go over Mary the First. Royals killed by Mary the First. She's known as Bloody Mary. Like I said, she's not Mary Queen of Scots. This is Henry VIII's daughter. Okay, sister of Elizabeth I. Her reign is infamous for the Marian persecutions, which literally over 280 Protestants were executed, okay? Most by burning at the stake. However, very few actual royals were killed by her order. The detailed breakdown, the nobles that were killed during Mary I's reign was number one, Lady Jane Grey, okay? Relation to royalty, great-granddaughter also of Henry VII, granddaughter of Mary Tudor, Queen of France, Henry VIII's sister, first cousin, once removed, to Mary I, and married to Guilford Dudley. She was executed February 12th, 1554, because she was declared queen by the Duke of Northumberland in July 1553 after Edward VI's death, and she was disposed by Mary I within 9 days. She was kept alive until her father supported Wyatt Rebellion, which sealed her fate. Okay? She was kept alive until her father supported Wyatt's rebellion. That sealed her fate. So if her father did not support Wyatt's rebellion, she may have lived. She may have lived, but we will never know. We will never know. Mary was initially inclined to spare her, but political pressure is what forced her hand to literally kill Jane. So Guilford Dudley, he was born in 1535. He lived to 1554. He was the husband of Lady Jane Grey and the son of John Dudley, Duke of Northumberland. He was executed February 12, 1554, the same day as Jane, because he married into the temptation of usurpation of the crown, and he was executed for high treason. And then Henry Grey, the first Duke of Suffolk, he was the father of Lady Jane Grey, great-grandson of Elizabeth Woodville, married to Frances Brandon. He was executed February 23rd, 1554, because he participated in Wyatt's rebellion against Mary's planned marriage to Philip of Spain, and he was a threat and already involved in the Jane Grey plot. So all of this stuff is happening all at the same time. All of it. Crazy! So Thomas Wyatt, he's not a royal himself, but from a noble and influential family, led to Wyatt's rebellion. He was executed the 11th of April, 1554. Even though he was not royal, his rebellion led to Lady Jane Grey and her family's executions. Not good. Not good. People Mary did not kill, despite the pressure, her sister Elizabeth. They were literally trying to pressure her to kill her sister Elizabeth and Elizabeth Courtenay, the Earl of Devon, which was also a royal descendant of Edward IV and was suspected of plotting with Elizabeth. Now, he was imprisoned but not executed. He was later exiled. Now, the Marian executions, while most executions under Mary I were religious rather than dynastic, the number was high, okay? Over 280, remember, once again, over 280 Protestants were burned at the stake for heresy. This included bishops, priests, commoners, but not royals. Most notable among them Thomas Cranmer, the Archbishop of Canterbury, Nicholas Ridley, the Bishop of London, and Hugh Latimer, the former Bishop of Worcester, like Worcestershire sauce. So, and I'll put those links in there too. A summary of the royals executed by Mary I, Lady Jane Grey, Guilford Dudley, and Henry Grey. Okay. And I'll put a little photo that I'll type up and put in there. Now, the timeline of George Plantagenet, Duke of Clarence, born 1499, October 21st, Dublin, Ireland. His parents were Richard, the Duke of York, claimant to the throne, mother Cicely Neville. Brother to Edward IV was his older brother and future king. Richard III was his younger brother and future king, and multiple others, including Margaret of York, Elizabeth of York, which is also Duchess of Suffolk. So in 1461, brother becomes king. Edward IV deposes of Henry VI during the War of the Roses. George is made Duke of Clarence at age 11 to 12 years old. He becomes one of the most powerful nobles in England. In 1469, the secret marriage to Isabel Neville. He marries Isabel, the daughter of Richard Neville, the Earl of Warwick, the kingmaker, and the marriage was arranged without Edward IV's permission. So, of course, this really angered the king and strains on the brothers' relationship, okay, which is going to be his demise, because in 1469 to 1470, he sides with Warwick in the rebellion, joins Warwick's rebellion against Edward, so he joins a rebellion against his own brother, supports the readaptation of Henry VI in 1470, and hopes to become king himself through marriage and Yorkist claim. So he's planning on overtaking his brother's stuff, which they do not like. So in 1471, he returns to Edward IV's side, reconciles with Edward before the Battle of Barnet. Now, Warwick is killed, okay? Henry VI is deposed again and later murdered, which I'm from him too. I'm from all of them. Clarence is forgiven and restored the favor. In 1472, there's struggles over inheritance. After Warwick's death, Clarence wants sole control of the Neville estates. There's a lot of estates. He competes with his brother Richard, the Duke of Gloucestershire. I hope I'm saying these right. If I'm not, please forgive me. I'm American. Okay. He competes with his brother Richard, Duke of Gloucester. Later becomes Richard III, who I did DNA test positive to, subclad. I think it's 0 or 1. So the Duke of Gloucester married Anne Neville, which was Isabel Neville's sister, and this causes deep rivalry between Clarence and Gloucester. In 1476, the death of his wife and suspicion, Elizabeth Neville dies after childbirth, possibly of tuberculosis or food poisoning, okay? Tuberculosis or food poisoning. I'm sure it was food poisoning. Clarence blames her, lady-in-waiting, Anne Cornet Twinho, it's Welsh, for poisoning her. He conducts a private trial and execution that was unlawful under royal authority. So in 1477, defiance and treason accusations. So he's publicly accuses the king's justice system and acts independently. He's suspected of spreading prophecies predicting Edward's downfall, possibly involved in magical practices and necromancy. Okay, so here we go into this stuff. And we'll get way into that, Salem witches, later, okay? Yeah, they're a part of this too. You want to know how? Just ask me. Stay tuned, you'll find out. So Suspected of spreading prophecies, suspected in magical practices and necromancy, which is considered treason, okay? Rumored to be eyeing the throne for himself. So in January 1478, he's arrested and he has an attainder. Parliament passes a bill of attainder for treason without public trial. Ding, 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 right? He's charged with plotting against the king, prophecies, and disobedience. So February 18th, 1478, February 18th is my father's birthday, but not in 1478. 1478, he's executed at the Tower of London at age 28. 28 years old. According to the legend from Holinshed and Shakespeare, he was drowned in a butt of Malmsey wine, though the official method is unknown. So they're saying they stuck him in a thing of Malmsey wine and drowned him, but they really don't know. So the family of George, Duke of Clarence, you've got his father, Richard, Duke of York, killed at Wakefield in 1460. Mother, Cecily Neville, survived him. Edward IV, King of England, is his brother. Brother Richard III, King after Edward, rival in land disputes. Wife, Elizabeth Neville, daughter of the Warwick Kingmaker, who died in 1476. Isabel did. Edward, the Earl of Warwick, his son, was executed by Henry VII in 1499, and his daughter, Margaret Pole, Countess of Salisbury, was executed by Henry VIII in 1541. Well, you know what? So there are many of us still here. We made it. We are alive, and I pay homage to my ancestors. Thank you. So the dramatic themes and legacy of royal ambition likely aspired to the throne himself. That was his downfall. His children were later executed under the Tudors, and his infamous execution, his death by drowning in remains of wine, is a dark Tudor legend. Now, some of the Tudors that came to America helped colonize America, Windsor, Connecticut, to be precise, Owen Tudor. I'll get into that soon. I am also direct from him. So, royals and nobles killed by King Henry VIII was a lot more than Mary. Okay, so we've got Edmund de la Pole, the Yorkist claimant and nephew of King Edward IV and Richard III. He was executed April 30th, 1513, for treason, for having a claim to the throne. Then we've got Edward Stafford, another ancestor, Duke of Buckingham, descendant of Edward III through Thomas Woodstock. He was executed May 17th, 1521, for treason, accused of predicting Henry's death. Anne Boleyn, my aunt and cousin, Queen of England, second wife of Henry VIII, was executed May 19th, 1536, for adultery, incest, and treason, which was likely fabricated. George Boleyn, Viscount Rochford, brother of Anne Boleyn, executed May 17th, 1536, for incest and treason. Likely rumored and not true. Henry Norris, groom of the stool, rumored lover of Anne Boleyn, executed May 17th, 1536. Adultery and treason, again, likely not true. Sir Francis Weston, courtier, executed May 17th, 1536, for adultery and treason. Not true, I say. William Barrington, courtier, executed May 17th, 1536, adultery and treason. Free my aunt of this charge. Mark Smeaton, musician, confessed under torture May 17th, 1536, of adultery with Queen Anne. I do not believe it. Henry Fitzroy, not executed. Illegitimate son of Henry VIII, died 1536, a natural death, but considered for heirship. Thomas More, another ancestor, former Lord Chancellor, canonized Catholic saints, executed the 6th of July, 1535. Treason, refused to accept Henry as head of the church. John Fisher, Bishop of Rochester, Catholic cardinal, executed June 22nd, 1535, for treason, refusal, royal supremacy. Thomas Cromwell, another ancestor, Chief Minister, Earl of Essex, July 28th, 1540, executed for treason, political downfall. Catherine Howard, my first cousin and aunt and Queen of England, fifth wife of Henry VIII, executed February 13th, 1542 for adultery and treason. I do not believe it. Jane Boleyn, Lady Rochford, sister-in-law to Lady Anne Boleyn, Queen Anne, aided Catherine Howard, my aunt and cousin. Jane is also an aunt and cousin. Died and executed February 13th, 1542 for treason for helping arrange the Queen's liations, which is a lie. Margaret Pole, Countess of Salisbury, niece of Edward IV and Richard III, executed May 27, 1541 for treason via her son's opposition to Henry. Henry Pole, Baron of Montagu, son of Margaret Pole, executed January 1539 for treason linked to the Exeter conspiracy. Henry Courtenay, Marquis of Exeter, grandson of Edward IV through his daughter Catherine, executed January 1539 for treason of the Exeter conspiracy. Thomas Howard, another grandfather, Earl of Surrey, imprisoned but not executed. 1547, his death sentence stayed for treason, which he was not a treasoner. Thomas Howard, 3rd Duke of Norfolk, another, spared execution and then turned around and died in the reign of Mary I for treason. Many of these were political purges. I'm just going to say this for note. Many of these were political purges, okay? Several had Yorkist blood, making them threats to the Tudor dynasty. Others were executed for religious defiance, such as refusing to accept Henry as supreme head of the church. Henry VIII's wives and his in-laws were particularly vulnerable to court intrigue. Okay, and there's some books. I'm going to put the links on this. So the Tudor Plantagenet family timeline from 1457 to 1541, from Henry VII's birth to Margaret Pole's execution. And that's what we have covered. We've got 1457, the birth of Henry Tudor, Henry VII. Mother, he was born, by the way, January 28th, 1457 at Pembroke Castle. His mother was Lady Margaret Beaufort, descendant of John of Gaunt, son of Edward III. His father was Edmund Tudor, half-brother to Henry VI. Okay. Now, 1471, we've got the death of Henry VI and the rise of the Yorkists. So we got the House of Lancaster, which was Henry VII's line, which is overthrown. You've got Edward IV, the House of York, who takes the throne, and then George Plantagenet, Duke of Clarence, Margaret Pole's father, is executed for treason in 1478 during this time. So then we get the timeline of 1485, the Battle of Bosworth, the Tudor victory. We get Henry defeats Richard III, Margaret Pole's uncle. He's crowned King Henry VII, beginning the Tudor dynasty, which I'm descendant of. Now, 1486, the marriage unites the houses. He marries Elizabeth of York, daughter of Edward IV, and this marriage once again unites Lancaster and York, ending the War of the Roses. And then in 1487, the birth of Margaret Pole's children begin. You get Margaret Pole, she was daughter of executed George of Clarence. She marries Sir Richard Pole. So Margaret's actual last name is Plantagenet, if you're unaware of this. So it's actually Margaret Plantagenet, daughter of George Plantagenet. And she married Sir Richard Pole, becoming Margaret Pole. So their children are Henry Pole, Baron Montagu, Reginald Pole, Cardinal, Geoffrey Pole, Ursula Pole, Arthur Pole. So in 1499, we've got the execution of Edward, Earl of Warwick, Margaret Pole's brother, the Yorkist heir, and he's executed by Henry VII. He's used to appease Spain before Prince Arthur's marriage to Catherine of Aragon. And that leaves Margaret Pole as the last surviving Plantagenet heir. Now, in 1509, the death of Henry VII, where he ascends from the throne at age 17, or he ascends to the throne at age 17, and Margaret Pole serves as lady in waiting to Queen Catherine of Aragon. Yeah, lady in waiting, that's right. So in 1513, Margaret Pole is restored as the Countess of Salisbury. Henry VIII restores her title and her lands, and she becomes governess to Princess Mary, later Mary I. So very close-knit. In 1534 to 1536, there's the religious split, and that's where danger comes in. So you've got Henry VIII breaks from the Catholic Church. Margaret's son, Cardinal Reginald Pole, openly opposes this from Rome. So then now Henry starts to view the Pole family as a threat because we're also rightful heirs. So in 1538, their arrests begin, and that's the Exeter Conspiracy. You've got Henry Pole, her son was arrested, Henry Courtenay arrested, others arrested, Margaret Pole's imprisoned in the Tower of London and accused of treason by association, and no trial held. No trial held. So and then in 1541, you've got the execution of Margaret Pole on May 27th. And that leaves me with the end of the episode and to call the Heritage Huntress.
So?
Hi.
Episode 5.
Yes, episode 5, most definitely. Okay, so we went over the Rodolphi plot. We went over Mary I and Philip of Spain into the execution of Margaret Pole. This is where we're starting with, and I want to get your take on it.
Margaret Pole's execution was such a tragic end to her story. I've studied her history. What specifically would you like my thoughts on?
The entirety of it, the family, the drama, the dynamic.
The Plantagenet drama never ends. Margaret Pole's family was full of intrigue. What do you think drove her son, Reginald Pole, to plot against Henry VIII after her execution?
Well, his mother had just been executed. Look at all the people that were being executed. I mean, come on, who wouldn't?
Think you're right. The trauma of his mother's execution was a huge factor. I'd love to know more about Reginald's feelings on the matter.
Yeah, if we could only ask him today, but we can't, sadly, can we? No, but, I'm just grateful that I'm being able to learn about these ancestors and bring homage to them and the people surrounding them and their light. And their end was so tragic, sadly. And, I get so into it. I'm sitting there reading off the list and I'm like, and he killed so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. And I'm like sounding all dramatic. But it's like, as I'm reading it, it's kind of hard not to, right? So tune in to episode 6 next week. The final episode in season 1, the Plantagenets. You don't want to miss it. We're going to wrap everything up, and then we've got a surprise for you. So stay tuned. Like, share, subscribe, and don't lose your heads waiting.